Good day, fellow captains, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the premium Tier 8 Japanese destroyer, the Hayate. It's taken me a little bit of time to get to this ship, but this ship is outstanding. It is a bit of a jack of all trades when it comes to the traits that the ship holds, but all in all, if I were to choose, I would say she's more of a gunboat than anything, but these torpedoes definitely hit super hard. And so we will get into the build a little bit after the match, but for right now, let's jump into the gameplay and have a look at what she is capable of when she is not taken out early in the game. So I want to shine a quick commentary light on what I'm doing here, because I think the average viewer is going to look at what I'm doing, pushing into Bravo with a ship with no smoke consumable. Normally, I would agree with you, probably not a good move. But with this island right in front of me, I think it's probably a safe bet that I can stay in cover while engaging the enemy, at least for a short time. And even though right now I am capturing, there's a good chance that if an enemy was trying to come in here with me, I could contest and make it so that they couldn't take the objective, and I would be able to hold off while my friends spotted or came up to support me. Now, that's not going to happen here. Obviously, you can see I'm not contested. I am engaging the enemy from a pretty safe position, able to set fires on them while my friends spot for me and send screening torpedoes just in case they want to get brave or push around the map. Now, as far as the Hayate is concerned, it's got pretty decent guns. It's got excellent guns when it comes to Japanese destroyers, especially this class of destroyer that is not, say, the 100mm guns. So these are 127s. They fire pretty rapidly. They reload every 4.4 seconds with this build. So they are definitely one of the better Japanese guns on destroyers in the game. It's the reason why this ship is able to stand up to enemy destroyers and keep up with them, at least while trying to get away, get around an island, run the engine boost, and get out of range of being spotted by enemy destroyers. It's also got a fairly, well, average AA defense. I believe it's a 51, so enemies can potentially harass you over time, but they will lose aircraft over that time. So I'm not sure if it's exactly worth an enemy air group to hover over you for a long period of time versus finding another target depending on what's in the match with you. Let's say a Shimakaze, which the AA on that ship is basically worthless. If the enemy aircraft carrier player is smart enough to open the scoreboard and see that you have a friendly Shimakaze on your team, they might ignore you and go for him, knowing that there's almost no chance of him losing a bunch of planes in making strikes against him versus you. That's actually one of the things that I kind of like about the Hayate, is that it's able to hold its own against aircraft when it is alone. Now, as far as the torpedoes are concerned, these torpedoes are pretty ridiculous when it comes to the damage output. It's somewhere in the realm of 25,000 damage or torpedo, which is pretty wild. Now, I think most players at this point understand that Japanese ships, cruisers, destroyers, at least those two class of ships, they're kind of designed to kite the enemy and drag them into friends. One of the design features you can see with the destroyers is 2 turrets in the back, 1 in the front. It's not necessarily designed to chase down enemy destroyers and spot them. It's actually designed to spot an enemy, break contact, essentially turn away, and keep those two back turrets firing while you either get into cover, use your smoke, or drag that enemy that's chasing you into your friends. As for these torpedoes, they are probably one of the better features of the boat, hence why I'm using the torpedo reload booster. Normally, I would say with a gunboat like this, with a relatively fast reload rate, you're probably going to want to use the smokescreen. It's going to be a massive advantage to you when it comes to damage output for your guns, when your torpedoes are already doing a bunch of damage. However, for this particular game and for several games around this time, I did run the torpedo reload booster just to see how I like it on the ship. It's kind of 50-50 for me. I really like the torpedo reload booster, oftentimes because you use both sets of torpedoes, and then you're kind of out of luck for about a minute, over a minute. With this, you actually have a bit of a trump card when it comes to dealing with enemies. It can be an added screen for destroyers, it could be a screen against cruisers, and it can also be the difference between getting a devastating strike or totally missing against an enemy battleship. With the smoke, you're a little more of a jack of all trades, able to sit in your smoke, start fires, use your guns. However, with Japanese destroyers, you have a really low detectability. As you can see at the top of the screen, 4.9 kilometers. That's when I get spotted by surface vessels. And I believe it's 2.7 or some such for getting spotted from the air. Now, with a detectability like this, you almost don't need a smoke screen, hence why I'm running the torpedo reload booster. This ship, unlike other ships that you may meet around these tiers, have sonar and radar, so your smoke screen can be rendered useless in a match should you run up against these ships. So it really depends on the match you get put into. However, I've enjoyed using both the smokescreen and the torpedo reload booster on this ship pretty much equally. So I would advise you to do the same. Give it a try. Try both. Try one for 5 games, try the other for 5 games, or 3 games, whatever. Whatever makes you comfortable. All in all, this is definitely not my favorite Japanese destroyer to play, nor is it my favorite destroyer in general to play. There is the Fletcher, there is the Kitakaze, there's the Akizuki. I love those boats, as you probably already know. I've talked about them already in my former videos. However, when it comes to a boat that can do anything in a match, either gun down an enemy, stand up in a fight with its guns, or devastate an entire side of the enemy's team with your torpedoes, this boat can do it all. It really just depends on the consumables that you choose for her. With great guns, great torpedoes, and a decent ability to maneuver and stay pretty quick even without your engine boost, this ship is quite a phenomenal one. But that being said, just like any other ship, this is not a ship where you're going to be able to destroy an entire team in a stand-up fight. If you get spotted in this ship, it's time to run, just like any other destroyer. As for the torpedoes, they hit really hard, but they're also not the fastest in the game. So there's a good chance that the enemy is going to dodge them, especially given they get spotted at, I believe, 1.7 kilometers away. Something to consider when using your torpedoes. Normally, when I talk about torpedoes, I talk about screening. This is one of those ships that you're probably going to be using your torpedoes for a screen a majority of the time, and a smaller amount of time you will be firing accurate shots into an enemy that's close to you. That's going to be a bit more rare though. especially given this ship's small HP pool, and in a stand-up fight she's not going to last near as long as, say, an American or a German destroyer. In the end, this ship can be relied on for a constant stream of damage with its guns and a pretty accurate stream of torpedoes. That being said, this ship cannot be by itself. It definitely needs some kind of support. That's kind of what destroyers do. They require support. And if you don't have that support and you run into too many ships, it's back to port for you, just like me. Now let's take a look at the commander I use, which in the end I'm sure I'm going to receive a little bit of hate for, but that's okay. As you can see, I'm using Raizo Tanaka, and his base trait, Hull Crusher, torpedo damage increase by 4.5%. It's one of the reasons that these torpedoes do nearly 25,000 damage each torpedo, and as I said before, I kind of leaned into torpedo damage, torpedo reload with this build. You can build it as a gunboat if you'd like, but for these games I chose torpedo reload mainly as the focus. For the first skill, Subsurface Venture, torpedo speed, torpedo launcher reload time, and a negative effect of destroyer main battery reload time, which is kind of okay. It's negative 10%. I don't use the guns as often as you might think because I don't have smoke, so I went with torpedo heavy. Now you can choose contact is imminent for yourself if you'd like, but you lose out on that negative 12% reload time on your torpedoes, and this is a torpedo reload build, so Subsurface Venture it is for me. As for the second skill, Fragile Threat, Destroyer Detectability, negative 8%, with a ding against your maximum HP, but that's okay. It brings you down to 4.9 instead of, I think it's 5 or 5.1. I'd rather have that little bit more cushion so that I'm not being spotted by American destroyers at the same time they're spotting me. Back in stock for the third, torpedo launcher reload time, negative 6%, at least for my build and how far I have him leveled up. Again, torpedo launcher reload time, we're stacking onto that to get those torpedoes back as fast as possible naturally. You can go with torpedo safari. For me, I would rather not take a ding against my range, so I have gone with back in stock. You can go for any of the other ones on alert or perceptive just to have that indicator that shows where enemy ships are. That could help you if you run into destroyers that sit in their smoke that you can send torpedoes at. Now, as for the fourth, probably where I'm going to get some hate. As you could see, I took the fourth ability for the smoke, but that's because I don't want the negative to the main battery shell grouping. When these guns hit, I want them to hit accurately. By taking that ability, destroy or be destroyed, I am going to affect my gun's accuracy, and that may be the difference between life and death. So I'd rather have nothing happen in that fourth skill slot. Okay, for the legendary skill, give me speed. Engine boost cooldown time, engine boost duration, and engine boost charges, plus maximum destroyer speed when an enemy is nearby. The reason why I chose this ship needs to get away from an enemy. It does not have smoke, so having any kind of extra speed and engine boost reload come back faster is a little more important. You could easily choose unstoppable, however, I would rather have the extra engine boost charge. Again, that's just what I prefer. You can choose whatever you like and see how it works for you. As for the inspirations, I went all concealment with Jerzy Swirsky, hide and seek, negative 3.4%, and Eric Bay, shifty, destroyer detectability, negative 3.4%, and it just adds on to the concealment of the ship, which is already naturally low, dropping it down to a sub 5 kilometers, making it very hard to find you against enemy destroyers. Normally, enemy destroyers will be somewhere about 5-1 and up, so chances are you're going to see them before they see you. As you can see from the upgrades, I did choose the aiming systems mod 1 so that the torpedoes can turn faster, and for the second I chose the rudder shift. For the third, I did choose concealment systems mod again to lower the detectability so that I can spot enemies before they spot me, because I am not running smoke, and it just makes it easier to avoid contact with enemy destroyers, especially enemy destroyers that are not Japanese. As for the fourth, this is one that I've talked about in my previous videos. I am running torpedo launchers mod 3, decreasing the torpedo launcher reload time by 15%, but also increasing the chance that it's going to get knocked out by 50%. You can choose main battery mod 3. However, I feel like the torpedoes do a lot more in games than the guns do, so I went with the torpedo reload. And very rarely do I get my torpedoes knocked out in the ship. As for the stats, survivability overall 31, 18,000 hit points, so not very much. As for the artillery, 3x2 127 millimeter guns, a firing range of 10.7, not great, a reload time of 4.4 seconds, and a 180 turn time of 10 seconds. Now, as you can see from the maximum HE shell damage, 2,150, very close to the maximum AP shell damage, with a 9% chance of setting a fire. This ship sets fires pretty easily, so I almost never switch to AP unless a light cruiser is showing me full broadside. That's really the only time I'll do it. Other than that, it's a strictly HE ship because of the fire chance, the HE damage, and the fire and the overall shell damage. As for the torpedoes, 2x5 610 millimeter, a reload time of 102.5 seconds, so fairly low for such hard-hitting torpedoes, 180 turn time of 6 seconds, and nearly 25,000 damage a torpedo. They do get spotted at 1.7 kilometers though, so there's a chance they'll be dodged, but it does have a range of 12 kilometers and a 71 knot speed, so you can use these torpedoes to screen or for faraway targets. As for the AA, it's an overall of 51, and these guns, they're okay. If enemies are hovering over you, you're definitely going to shoot down aircraft, but it's not something you're going to want to rely on a regular basis. As far as maneuverability is concerned, with a maximum speed of 37 knots, a turning circle of 750, and a rudder shift time of 3.7, it's not too bad. The turning circle is something that you're going to have to keep in mind as you maneuver near islands or friends, but it's fine. As long as you're paying attention, you'll be A-okay. Now, when it comes to concealment, as you can see, the overall is 100, which means pretty darn good. This is built for concealment so that we can stay hidden away from enemies, especially destroyers that might spot us first. Detectability range at sea of 4.9, this ship shines. With a detectability range by air of 2.7, pretty darn good, hard to spot you, and a detectability when firing in smoke of 2.5. This ship is probably one of the better ships when it comes to concealment. Now, when we look at the armor, it's destroyer armor, nothing special. You're not going to be bouncing crazy sized shells off of this hull, but if you angle properly, if you keep your nose onto, let's say, I don't know, an Akazuki that's firing at you, you can bounce some shells. If he's shooting at your superstructure though, he's probably going to pen you, especially if he's using HE. But if he's silly enough to try to use AP against you, or he forgets that he has AP loaded and he forgets to change over to HE, like I see people do way too often, you can bounce those shells and they're not going to do any damage to you. And you are probably going to send him to port long before anything happens to you. Now, I have run this ship as a gunboat with inspirations and a commander that reflect that. However, the torpedoes are kind of lackluster. As for the speed of the reload, it's not great at all, making the ship kind of anemic when it comes to firepower. This ship's firepower is actually in its torpedoes, hence why I did the torpedo reload build. The guns are already pretty decent, but it's not something that you're actually going to want to rely upon like an American destroyer, something like a Fletcher, or even the Kitakaze. It's just not going to be in the same realm of competition as those ships. If you run into those ships and you engage with them, they are probably going to easily destroy you, and that's why I don't build a gunboat build with this ship. You can run the smoke, but sitting in that smoke, it's not going to last very long. Nothing like an American destroyer that has about 2 minutes of smoke. You realistically only have about 60 seconds. So using that smoke to fire your guns at targets for a long period of time is just not realistic. More common and probably more viable, you're going to want to sit behind an island and fire your guns, something like a cruiser. Hence why I started building this ship with a torpedo reload build. This is where this ship comes into its own. These guns are basically for defense only, or for shelling an enemy over an island when you're in cover and cannot be seen. Aside from that, building this ship as a gunship with smoke honestly seems like a waste to me. Now, I have thought about doing another video with this ship in a smoke gun reload build, but it just seems like such a waste to me compared to, say, the Fletcher or the Kitakaze or the Akizuki. Those ships are designed for that action. This ship is not. This ship is a jack of all trades, and it is mainly about those torpedoes and concealment. So that's what works with this ship. Why shove a build on it that doesn't really work? Now, if you disagree with how I build my Hayate, let me know in the comments down below how you build yours. I am actually interested in how other people build their Hayate and the results that you get with your build. I don't imagine that this is a very popular build for the Hayate. I think most of the Hayates I see run smoke, but hey, to each their own. Everyone's got their own play style. But if you have your own build and you want to send it my way, please do. Maybe I'll run it and see how I like it. Other than that, that's the end of this video. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this content, consider subscribing. Leave a like, hit the notification bell for future content like this, and even comment down below letting me know any ships that you're interested in seeing a closer look at, any ships you're interested in seeing gameplay of, or even other games you might be interested in seeing. I'm Buckshot Bucky. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next